Of course, we begin with matters of the economy as the Central Bank of Nigeria this week announced that it successfully cleared all valid foreign exchange backlogs, effectively eliminating a legacy burden. This accomplishment fulfills a commitment made by CBN Governor, Mr. Olaimi Cardoso, who vowed to address an inherited backlog of $7 billion in claims. The CBN also announced a significant increase in external reserves, rising by $993 million to $34.11 billion as of March 7, 2024, the highest level in 8 months. The month-on-month increase was driven by a marked advance in remittance payments by Nigerians overseas, as well as higher purchases of local assets, including government debt securities by foreign investors. And of course, joining me now to discuss this is Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability. He's, of course, right here in the studio with me. Olufemi, good to have you this evening. Good evening. Well, it's very, very obvious now that foreign investor confidence is obviously gaining momentum with this news. Now, what do you think we can do to actually sustain this advantage?
I think with the first meeting of the MPC, the Monetary Policy Committee, last month, coming to make promises, giving assurances, and just a month after, we are beginning to see this positive intervention, and I think this brings a lot of hope to the economy. This brings a lot of hope to the stabilization of our, forex and even local economy, and I think this is one step taken, at least in the last 8 years, 8 months rather, of the administration that has given hope to not only Nigerians but also investors, because one of the key issues that has led to the burden inherited by the administration is the fact that the previous administration practically left this job undone. Right. The CBN practically left his job and delved into politics and all sort of things that ordinarily, practically, downgraded what ordinarily should be the focus. And it is good that today we are having a CBN that is not only working with itself, but also working with independent, bodies to ensure that these burdens are not only cleared, but we're able to sustain these gains and, of course, stabilize the economy further.
All right, now you would expect that this news would actually, excite the common man on the street, but it's always the usual trend. Even when things are looking stabilized at the top, market prices find it very difficult to come down. Why are we always caught up in that situation, and how can we rectify this?
It is not usually, possible to reflect this in the immediate. It's not usually rapid, because if you look at how we got to the level of inflation in the market prices, just like you said, a lot of times inflation happens overnight, but when we want to expect decrease in prices, in rates, and also, it doesn't usually come overnight, especially when you look at the speed with which our inflation has risen. So it may not decrease at that speed, but it's very certain that with time, there will be tendencies for a decrease not only in prices, but also some other factors that have been affected by inflation occasioned by the instability in the forex and, of course, the fall in our local currency, the naira. So I strongly believe that if this is sustained, it will directly have its impact on our local economy, and of course we should expect the gains.
But Nigerians are very stubborn when it comes to prices. Now, there have been calls that strict price control agencies should be set up to be able to control market prices. How effective do you think that can actually come into play, and how quickly can that be possible?
It is a necessity, and you remember just a few months ago, the learned SAN, Mr. Femi Falana, went to court to seek an enforcement of that policy, and I think beyond the fact that government may claim that it does not have business in business, government must protect the citizen by ensuring, especially those very important goods and services that Nigerians rely on almost on a daily basis, that it may not be able to completely regulate prices, but when with strict enforcement and of course working with manufacturers and of course suppliers of goods and services, I think we can enforce a policy that will ensure that there's control of prices and people do not just sit and impose burden of prices on our people, despite effort being made by, because this effort being made by government are not going to reflect in the life of the ordinary people if we don't bring down prices. So this issue of price control is very important. I think it's one area that the administration must take seriously while it is working to stabilize the economy.
All right, we can actually agree that Cardoso pulled off a very remarkable, feat in less than a short while. And but presently, right now, what other projections do you see happening as we keep progressing?
Because the economy is very key, of course, while every sector also very important. But if you see what has led to the series of outcry over the last few months, and of course what looks like creating tension even within the society, were direct, effect of the economic situation of the country. So if we're able to stabilize, our economy by ensuring that the monetary policies are returned, to the order, and we're able to ensure that, people earn more. We must look at how our people will also earn more. Right. So I think some of these policies of government are very expedient at this time in order to ensure that we lessen the tension that has been created by the skyrocketed inflation over the past few months. And while these policies are beginning to take shape, we must understand that we must take policies. Government must look at policies that will have a direct impact on the ordinary Nigerians who were, of course, the ones leading the charge for, stabilize the situation.
Before we run off from this topic, I just want you to give me a pointer. Now, according to Cardoso, he says, we made clearing the FX backlog a priority to restore credibility and confidence in the Nigerian economy. Now, what can be done to actually avoid these backlogs moving forward? Quickly, before we go to the next one.
It was a failure of the system itself. We never had that record. It's over 7 billion for the CBN to have been able to clear over 700 verified claims in less than, in this short while. It tells you that somebody somewhere before was not doing the right thing. Now the right thing is being done and it must be sustained.
All right, we take a time out now, and of course, Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back, and it's still Newsweek, where we discuss the biggest stories that made headlines in the week. The feud between Nigeria's Labour Organization and Labour Party moved to a deeper level over the course of the week. LP accused the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, Ajaero, of sponsoring an insurrection in the party's headquarters with workers' fund. Abure also told Ajaero not to use the platform, funds and resources of the NLC to pursue his ambition of either becoming the president of the country in 2027 or governor of Imo State. In separate letters written to the secretary to the government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, and other relevant government officials, LP called for disciplinary action to be taken against Ajaero and other union leaders who spearheaded the alleged vandalization of his property. The letters followed NLC's Wednesday's protest at LP secretariats and calls for Abure's resignation as the party's national chairman. And of course, joining me to discuss this is Olayinka Oladanes. He's a lawyer, and of course, he's joining me via Zoom. I still have Olufemi in the studio with me right here. Olayinka Daniels, good to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Now, the LP chairman is accusing the leadership of the NLC of using the union to push political ambitions for 2027. Now, how disturbing is this revelation?
Well, we can call that perhaps an allegation, because the last time I checked, if you look at the constitution that bets the Labour Party, it's clear that Labour is involved in that particular political party. So now, if Labour is now telling the party to say, look, you should consider this, you should consider that, they should have a say, because that is the provision of their constitution, the constitution of the party, of the of LP, Labour Party. So the NLC, you can't totally take them out. However, if NLC is an organization, or is an let me put it this way, is an association that's supposed to be dealing with the general welfare of workers or laborers on the country as a whole, the people, then it should also be careful about being partisan, because once you go that route, there is nothing you are doing that will not be tagged as motive. And that is what is happening today in LP. That the chairman is saying Ajaero wants to use that platform for his 2027 campaign. Well, it may be an allegation, because We do not know whether that is the motive of Ajaero or not. But even as having said that, it is critical that the party and the NLC look at this. And because if you look, you remember the last time NLC came up and they were saying something, and Mr. President responded by saying, look, if you want to contest an election, wait till 2027. And rather than using, an organization that's supposed to be for everybody, using such platform to campaign for an election. So why don't you just join politics and wait till 2027 to campaign for any ambition of yours? You can see that it's already moving towards that route. And that is, it's been seen in different quarters, because this is not only Labour Party that is speaking. There are other political parties that have also aired their opinion on his movement. But then I will also ask, if we have NLC as an organization and Ajaero is pushing such agenda, are we saying that every other ESCO members of NLC do not see anything wrong with it? So we need to look at it objectively to say, okay, is this man pushing a personal agenda, or is he pushing the agenda of NLC as a whole, being part of Labour Party? Because that gave birth to Labour Party. So you can't say that NLC does not have a say in Labour Party, going by their constitution. But then I think we have to just look at it holistically and not just conclude on an allegation that, what the chairman of Labour said, that he's pushing for his own agenda for 2027. So we cannot just conclude, because if the members, the executives of this Labour organization have not come out to say this is what our boss is doing, I think, because if that is his agenda, I don't think they will be mute and they won't call him to order, being their boss, to say, look, we have our what is it called? We have operation.
Our modus operandi.
We know what we do, and it's for the people.
All right, now, from everything you said so far, it's obvious that Joe Ajaero is already neck deep into the politics of the Labour Party. Now, wouldn't this further hurt his credibility as the leader of the NLC, supposedly representing the voice of the people? What is your recommendation at this point?
Well, unfortunately, this is a bit dicey. Why do I say this? Because you cannot take NLC out of Labour Party. Then, now, that is where I think they may have to go back to the constitution, the law that backs Labour Party, to see how that can be taken out, how they can declare and clearly state the duty and the job of Labour Party and NLC, so that it will not be conflicting, and there won't be any conflicting interest here. Because no matter what Ajaero says, it's going to be tagged or being perceived to be that, he has an agenda, and he wants to come into politics and he wants to do that. There is no matter the head of that organization, it's going to be termed to be that. That is the reason why they have to go back to the constitution to state clearly the duty of Labour Party and the involvement, maybe to a particular limit of the involvement of NLC in Labour Party. It should be spelled out so that we don't have these conflicting issues of, any member or, of the organization imposing anything or directly involved in, Labour Party as a political party. So this needs to be, going forward, I think that should need to be considered first. They need to go back to the constitution and to know where to go from there and spell out everybody's duty.
All right. Olufemi Lawson, quickly, I'll come to you now. Now, Abure is facing allegations of impropriety at the moment, and even Peter Obi has asked for a forensic investigation into the allegations. Now, what is the complexity of the situation? I think
it's laughable for Abure to now want to dissociate the party from the NLC. We were all here during the election when the NLC leadership was giving a form of endorsement, to the Labour Party's candidate and all over the place. Abure never found anything dishonorable in that then. And another thing is that NLC, the Labour Party, was a brainchild of not just only the NLC anyway, of course other Labour Centre, including people who are in TUC now. Yeah. But I think what is happening now is just a crisis of people who must have done some things that are not in the open yet, which are likely going to be in the open very soon, within themselves, and are now one party feeling cheated and the other, and of course all sort of investigations are being asked for now and the like. But I think NLC at this time must understand that it cannot be involved in taking charge or leading active politics as it is presently.
Why you're representing the people?
Why you're representing a broad-based organization, representing workers belonging to different political interests.
Yeah.
The NLC must understand that there are more important issues of workers' welfare and mandate that it has from the workers than getting itself involved in how the political parties or candidates are nominated at this point. But for Abure, I think it is late for him to begin to tell Nigerians, that the Labour Party had no role in the party as it is, because during the election we also saw the role the Labour Party played.
All right, and finally on the show, President Bola Tinubu has ordered a ban on all foreign trips by ministers and other government officials. The Commander-in-Chief gave the directive via a letter by his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, addressed to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. In the letter, President Tinubu expressed concerns over the rising cost of foreign trips embarked upon by government officials amid Nigeria's dire economic situation. According to the letter, the ban will last 90 days in the first instance and will come into effect on April 1st, 2024. The president said exemptions would need presidential approvals, which must be sought 2 weeks ahead of the planned trip. Of course, I still have with me Olayinka Daniels, and of course I have Olufemi Losses still here with me. Olufemi, I'll have to take you on this very quickly. Now, it's very clear and obvious that this particular ban is an eye-opener so far. What's your general overview of it?
The first important thing for me in this decision is the fact that I think we now have a government that is beginning to listen to public opinion. Remember, this is like the third instance, when Nigerians have made, criticism of certain activities of government, and President has directly responded. This is one of the very important issues that has generated, criticism from Nigerians about how public officials travel, the number of government delegations on official trips and the likes, foreign trips, most, especially. So I think this is a direct response. And credit must be given to President Bola Tinubu, and it's also a direct response to the current economic reality. We've seen, ministers on the plane, sometimes with 6, 7 aides on official trips, some even on private trips, all paid for by government. We've seen, frivolous expenses incurred by ministers, by directors, head of agencies of government, in the name of trips with extra codes and all sort of payment. So I think this is a direct response by the administration, and it must be commended. And this must also reflect not only on trips, but other activities and areas of governance, including, not just the executive. We must not continue to focus on the executives alone. Is the National Assembly going to be toying the same steps? Do we continue to have a large number of, members of Assembly and staffs escorting the President of the Senate to an Owambe on weekend on presidential jet? And also, so this must go deeper than what the President has said.
All right, Olayinka Daniels, I know you're still hanging out there with us. It appears the President is really holding up his end of the bargain for effective governance at reducing costs. Now, what alternative do you think the ministries can adopt to further function in their capacity at this point?
Yeah, well, first I must appreciate and commend Mr. President for some of the policies and initiatives that he's taken so far. It shows that in a long time we have a listening president. And some of us also, we are happy that we talk, and it's not as if we just talk and nobody care to listen to what we say. And they listen to Nigerians now, and we are so glad. And to your question, there are loads of alternatives in which governance can be seen by the average Nigerian. Because, look, there are policies here and there. There are things that the government try to put in place. But the question is, to an average Nigerian, how has it affected you? Or how do you see that change? How do you perceive, the policies in your own local place, because that is key. You can see that everybody complains governance is too expensive, this, and Mr. President reduced his entourage, going out local trip and international trip. You can see that. You can see some other things they've been doing now. This to no just do suspension on of the various outing from ministers, and I think it can also, like the other speaker said, it can go deeper than that to the direct to everybody in Nigeria, even to all of us, because you go to the market. Because look, we need regulatory bodies that will be effective. And thankful, we are also thankful to CBN and to the extent of regulatory in the BDC now. So, and that is why we're seeing some of the things we're seeing. They are doing their work, and there's regulatory body looking at that. Even to that woman in the market, that local market, that you go and it will tell you this is the price of this particular, goods. And you wonder, when did you buy it? And you will sell it at the rate. Probably he bought it at when dollar was perhaps 700 naira, and it's selling to you at the rate of 1,500, because it's saying that when I want to buy the next one, I don't know how much I'm going to meet it in market, so I have to make more than double price. So this is not government, this is us. So it has to go deep, and to see we have regulatory body in all phases, to the market woman, to the local services, to all government parastatals, to even private sectors. Government really need to look deep into see how the government and the private sector have to come together really. And if we have to forge ahead and have something reasonable, everybody, all hands have to be on deck, and we all have to work together. We cannot leave this just to the government to do. It includes everybody. We have one role or the other to play to achieve this in this nation.
Olufemi Lawson, before we go, before I let you go now, others would argue that made in Nigeria goods to further strengthen the Naira should be the focus, but it should start first with the top government officials. How quickly should we start seeing this?
We should begin to see this as quickly as possible, especially when we look at the direct impact it will have on our economy. For instance, only recently the National Assembly claimed it was going to be buying SUV for members to the tune of millions of naira, and you could know what this translates to in foreign exchange, because these vehicles are going to be imported. So we must let Nigerians, the only way we can convince Nigerians to patronize made in Nigeria is by leadership, showing example. And if we don't do that, we cannot continue to ride made in Japan vehicle and ask the man in Bodija market to buy made in Nigerian vehicle. It will not work. Leadership must be by example, and one of the ways we can approach this, which is going to have a very positive impact on our economy, is for the leaders to lead by example, take the charge. President is advocating this almost every time. He must also enforce it the way he's enforcing the ban on unnecessary travels to other critical policies of government and programs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olufemi Lawson, for your time. And of course, Olayinka Daniels, thank you so much for your time as well, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And that's our show for today. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG or on our website at tvcnews.tv. I am Mark Otabo. Until next week, goodbye.
You want to become something? Become a child.